Back now with a mystery unsolved for decades. Jimmy Hoffa, the iconic Teamsters Union chief, disappearing in 1975 without a trace. Authorities now indicating they're breaking new ground in the search.
After 50 years, the secret is out. Investigators, guided by a clue from beyond the grave, have finally found him. The search for Jimmy Hoffa is over, but you see the discovery of his body isn't the real story, not even close. We're going to show you the evidence they found. Evidence so chilling it points to a second crime, a second victim, and a cover-up that happened just years ago, not in 1975. What was really buried with Jimmy Hoffa? The answer is more horrifying than the legend itself. The discovery that changed everything. For almost 50 years, the question of what happened to Jimmy Hoffa has haunted America. It became a legend, a dark piece of folklore whispered in the same breath as Area 51 and Bigfoot. But not all things are what they seem. While the FBI had long since moved on, a small private group of volunteer investigators known as the Case Breakers stumbled upon a lead so strange it felt like something from a movie. It came from the deathbed notes of a Wisconsin police officer, a single ace of spades playing card. Scrawled on its surface were just a few words: Milwaukee. Third base, old stadium, 1995. At first, it seemed like another wild goose chase. Many people are crazy about Hoffa theories, and this one felt particularly bizarre. The stadium mentioned, Milwaukee County Stadium, hadn't existed for over 2 decades. It was demolished in 2001, but what many overlooked is that history leaves footprints. Using old satellite images from the late 90s, the investigators spotted something strange, a patch of disturbed earth right where third base used to be. It was a long shot, but it was the first new lead in years. The team brought in ground-penetrating radar to scan the area, which is now a youth baseball field next to the new American Family Field. You can see this everywhere in cold cases, technology breathing new life into old mysteries. The scans revealed a dense, compacted layer of clay deep underground, a material not native to the area. The thing nobody tells you about compacted clay is that it's often used in landfills to slow down decomposition. It's also used by people who want to make sure something, or someone, stays hidden forever. The evidence was piling up, but they needed something more. That's when they brought in Moxie, a world-class cadaver dog with over 200 successful recoveries to her name. With her handler, a retired police officer, Moxie swept the field. She moved with intense focus, her nose to the ground. Then, right over the spot the radar had flagged, she sat. Firm, unwavering, her handler called it a high-confidence hit. She hit the same spot 4 separate times. The odds of both advanced radar and a top-tier cadaver dog being wrong about the same small patch of ground were practically zero. This was it. After getting the legal green light, the excavation began. Just a few feet down, they found it. Human remains. After decades of searching, the mystery was over. Or so they thought. But the lab results would soon reveal a timeline that was utterly impossible. A grave for 2. The discovery of human remains sent a shockwave through the law enforcement community. Samples were rushed to a lab for DNA testing, and days later the confirmation came back. The genetic markers were a match for Jimmy Hoffa's family. They had found him. The relief, however, lasted only a few minutes, because the lab uncovered a second, far more disturbing fact. The most shocking fact is that forensic dating of the soil and the remains concluded that the body had not been buried in 1975, the year Hoffa vanished. Instead, the burial took place around 1995, a full 20 years later. The implication was mind-bending. This wasn't Hoffa's original grave. Someone had kept his remains hidden for 2 decades and then moved him to this new, bizarre location under a ballpark. You see, this changed everything. The crime wasn't just a disappearance in the 70s, it was an active, ongoing cover-up that stretched into the modern era. Who had the power and resources to pull something like this off? And why move him after all that time? Why to a public place where he might one day be found? It was a move that was both brazen and, to put it mildly, deeply confusing. But the chilling discoveries weren't over. As the forensic team carefully excavated the rest of the site, they unearthed something else. A second, partial set of human remains. They were smaller, belonging to a different person entirely. Suddenly, the case had doubled in complexity. This wasn't just Jimmy Hoffa's grave, it was a tomb for two. Who was this second person? Was it another victim of the mob disposed of at the same time? Or was it someone connected to the cover-up itself, silenced and buried alongside the very secret they were meant to keep? The case breakers released a statement saying the body was not only moved but carefully tampered with. This story is far from over. The site was immediately sealed off and the FBI took control, their silence speaking volumes. Finding Hoffa's body was supposed to provide answers, but instead it opened a Pandora's box of new, terrifying questions. To understand who would do this, you have to understand the man himself, King of the Teamsters. Before he was a ghost, Jimmy Hoffa was one of the most powerful men in America. As the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, he controlled nearly 90% of all transportation in the United States. If Hoffa snapped his fingers, the country could grind to a halt. He was a hero to the working man, securing incredible wages and benefits for his members. He started as a teenage labor organizer, and his rise was nothing short of meteoric. By the time he took over the union, his power was absolute. But what many overlooked was the shadow that followed him. You see, in the early days, Hoffa made a deal. To fight off rival unions in Detroit, he enlisted the help of the local mob. It worked, but it came at a price he would spend the rest of his life paying. The mafia sunk its claws deep into the Teamsters, and Hoffa became their key. The arrangement was, for a time, a win-win. The thing nobody tells you is that the glittering casinos of Las Vegas were largely built with money from the Teamsters pension fund, hundreds of millions of dollars in loans that the mob used to build their desert empire. In return, the union got massive returns on its investments. This dark alliance eventually caught up with him. In 1967, Hoffa was sent to prison on a 13-year sentence for bribery and fraud. But after just 4 years, President Richard Nixon pardoned him with one major catch. Hoffa was banned from all union activities until 1980. This was a devastating blow. Hoffa, cut off from his source of power, grew restless and angry. By 1975, federal investigators were closing in on the looted pension fund. Just 2 weeks before he vanished, the news broke that hundreds of millions were missing. The timing was no coincidence. Many believe Hoffa, desperate to get back in the game, threatened to expose the mob's entire operation. He wanted to clean house and take back his union. It was a gamble that would cost him everything. He planned a meeting to settle the score, but it was a meeting he'd never walk away from. A son's suspicions, July 30th, 1975. That was the day the world last saw Jimmy Hoffa. The 62-year-old former union boss drove to the Maucus Red Fox restaurant in a Detroit suburb for a 2 o'clock meeting. According to a note he left, he was there to see two very powerful men, Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone, a Detroit mob captain, and Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano, a Teamster official with deep ties to the New Jersey Mafia. The problem? Neither of them showed up. When the FBI investigated, both men claimed they knew nothing about a meeting. To put it mildly, their alibis were almost too perfect. Giacalone made a big show of being at a local athletic club all afternoon, making sure plenty of people saw him. Provenzano was hundreds of miles away in New Jersey, playing cards with his brother. It was as if they were deliberately creating unshakable proof of their whereabouts. At 2:30, a frustrated Hoffa called his wife from a payphone, telling her he'd been stood up. Witnesses saw him pacing in the parking lot, waiting. Then a burgundy Mercury Marquis pulled in with 3 men inside. Multiple witnesses reported seeing the recognizable Jimmy Hoffa get into the car. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. The most shocking fact is that years later, a single strand of hair found inside a Mercury Marquis, just like it was confirmed through DNA to be Hoffa's. The driver was said to resemble Charles Chucky O'Brien, a man Hoffa had raised like a son. Hoffa would never have gotten into a car with strangers, but with his surrogate son behind the wheel, he would have felt safe. O'Brien always denied it, claiming he was delivering a 40-pound salmon that day, which had leaked in his car, forcing him to get it cleaned. But cadaver dogs later picked up Hoffa's scent in both the back seat and the trunk. It was a lie that never quite washed away the suspicion. With no body and suspects who wouldn't talk, the case went cold, spawning decades of myths. The truth was always closer. With Hoffa gone, the legend began. Speculation ran wild. For years, the most popular theory was that he was buried in the concrete foundation of Giant Stadium in New Jersey. Others claimed he was put through an industrial shredder or dropped to the bottom of the Great Lakes in a steel drum. You can see this everywhere with famous cold cases. The stories get bigger and wilder over time. The FBI chased every single lead, digging up horse farms in Michigan and landfills in New Jersey. Each dig was a media circus, full of flashing cameras and breathless reporters, and each one ended the same way, with nothing. In 1982, Jimmy Hoffa was declared legally deceased, but his ghost never rested. Then came the movies. Martin Scorsese's The Irishman was based on the story of Frank Sheeran, a mob hitman who claimed on his deathbed that he was the one who dispatched Hoffa in a Detroit house. The film gave a neat, tidy ending to the story, but investigators quickly poked holes in it. Forensic tests at the house Sheeran identified came up empty. There was no conclusive link to Hoffa. It was just another compelling story in a long line of them. People watching this were looking for a mystery, and for 50 years, that's all they got. Was it all just a series of elaborate myths to distract from a simpler, darker truth? The dig at the Pulaski Skyway, the search of the Hidden Dreams horse farm, all of them led nowhere. The thing is, while everyone was looking for a grand conspiracy buried in a famous landmark, the truth may have been hiding in a far simpler place. Are we missing a key detail? Perhaps the answer wasn't about where he was put in 1975, but who had the power to move him in 1995. All those dead ends now seem like part of an elaborate misdirection, a story designed to keep people looking in all the wrong places for all the wrong reasons. The real chilling evidence isn't about the mob hit itself, but about the long, patient, and terrifying cover-up that followed. The search for Jimmy Hoffa might be over, but the hunt for the whole truth has just begun. What's more terrifying, a decades-old crime or a recent cover-up? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more answers to history's darkest mysteries.